Well, it's mid-September here at Farming Smarter. There's silage all around us, and just the other day we had a class of students taught by Dr. Adriana Morel. It's a second-year specialty crops class, and so we brought them out here to the Farming Smarter site, something we do annually for a research experience.
Another rep, and they'll just be randomized, and so we're accounting for the variation.
Plots, there's 4 rows of corn per plot, and there's 3 sets of intercrops. Each of them should have 5 rows, so at the front of the plot, I'm going to come in at least a meter.
A lot of these kids grew up on the farm, some on feedlots, some are actually city kids as well, so they'll go on to careers in the ag industry. Some will go back and work on their farm and take what they've learned back home, and others might get involved in research, and so we're fortunate enough to have that experience with them. Usually 1 or 2 are pretty keen on what they learn out here, and they apply for a summer study and maybe independent study, something like that.
And then I'm going to count 2 more rows here. So we're going to do 3 rows right up against here on this side, and then we're going to do 3 rows right up against the corn going that way.
So what we do out here is we basically give the students a mini research experience. We'll explain the trial design, the methodology, and the objectives of what we're doing in the study. The college students are going to help us with a bit of data collection, and then in return they get an assignment to finish up on and learn a bit on the novel cropping side of things. For this specialty crop class, usually we've got some hemp or quinoa plots. Because we're kind of just slightly in between funding cycles, we thought we had a really good opportunity to showcase this study led by Dr. Yvonne Lawley and Dr. McGeough from the University of Manitoba. And what we're looking at here is a study that's focusing on extending the grazing window for forages and for intercropping corn. And so we're looking at a couple of species. We've got a radish, a clover, a vetch, and a ryegrass. And then we're going to be evaluating the quality and the biomass that those combinations can produce. First timing is early fall, which is right now around mid-September. And that's when we're going to take a corn silage and we're going to get a feed value on all these crops. And then we're going to do the same thing again in November. Now last year we had about 1 foot of snow. It was a little bit treacherous to get out and do it, but I don't know the students will come back for that one. So it'll probably just be us here doing that. And we'll also at the same time usually take a grain analysis as well. So this has been a really interesting project. We've got 5 main treatments. We're looking at an intercropping, obviously we're intercropping corn, so the most obvious is our control plot. This is corn that's been seeded on 30-inch spacing to act as a control. That's simulating our monoculture and kind of standard practice. So we'll be comparing the biomass, the silage yield, and the feed quality compared to the rest of the intercrops. So this lovely mess here, this is the crimson clover. Actually pretty decent establishment. You can see we planted everything about the same time in the spring. Pretty far along in terms of maturity. Most of this beautiful flowers have kind of died off and it's quite tangly, so this is probably the most difficult treatment. The students have had a little bit of trouble cutting it, counting up all the plants and getting the biomass, but definitely a good mat all the way across the bottom. Some sections may be starting to grow up the plant, and we'll see how it supplements the fact that we're basically missing a row of corn here. Another pretty awesome treatment, we've been using this radish, and you can see in some parts we've actually got some radish going to seed already. This is by far the biggest radish crop I've ever seen here at Farming Smarter and the most successful. So I think in the past we've had trouble getting established. We had trouble with late flea beetles decimating the leaves. So you can see we do have some damage on some of these. And we did end up sneaking in to spray it just because some of the other sites didn't have good survival because of the conditions. But it's pretty great looking crop in here, and I'm excited to see what kind of feed value this one has. So I just want to find a good spot of ryegrass in here. Maybe just in here isn't too bad. Yeah, so you can see this is our our ryegrass plot. One of the challenges we had is this weeding out all the wild oats, so it's a bit of a mix, but we are just looking at the feed quality of the ryegrass itself. Gave a really decent cover, and it's been consistent from year to year. I wouldn't say obviously it's our hugest biomass or yield, but it's been pretty easy to establish, and we'll have to see how that one does. And then lastly, we've got this vetch. This has kind of been a love-hate kind of crop. I think for anybody putting in this kind of forage, some of the other sites were maybe even twice as tall, growing all the way up the corn, which depending on your circumstance could be good. It may be too much, and so we will have to keep our eye on this to see how well it compares. See if there's any, obviously with these intercrops, we want to know, is there any antagonistic effect, or is it pulling the yield down on these wider rows, or is it just helping fill in all the middle? As of now, I think things are looking pretty great out here. I'm curious to see how it's going to look in November. We'll see what kind of year we have. May or may not have snow that's either still on the ground or melted at that point. And it'll be pretty interesting to come back and do another whole round of this.